Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph, 30 lines down. Bame Konin, how do we do Halipin? How do we do Kinyan Sudar? How does it work? Rav says, Bekelio Shel Koneh. It belongs to the handkerchief has to belong to the guy who's buying the item. He wants to hand over the handkerchief now to acquire the products elsewhere because he wants to have the instant transfer. He wants it to already be transferred to his ownership. Levi says, it belongs to the guy who's selling it. Will explain soon. So the Gemara says, they ask Rava, they say, hold on a second. Who said that the guy who's selling it does the handkerchief, provides the handkerchief. That means that technically, if he's selling land and he's using a handkerchief to sell land, he's technically selling the piece of land from a handkerchief. Problem with that is he's selling a piece of real property via a piece of non-real property. Real property being real estate. So you're saying real estate with a non-piece of real estate, which we know is a problem. But on the opposite. Movable gets sold via real property. Like if you sell the land with something on top of it, that's how the movables, the items move, sold. But over here, you're saying you're selling the handkerchief and the land's going through it. That's not good. When I said he was here, he would shoot you with fire. And it's not a good question. He's not selling the actual the land through the handkerchief. The pleasure that a guy gets from the fact that the other guy is taking his gift, that's enough to give him ownership. We saw a similar concept in Kiddushin, that lady can be mikudeshet with hana'ah, that the guy took a gift. Pesukim from Ruth. וזאת לפנים בישראל על הגאולה ועל התמורה. לקיים כל דבר שלף איש נעלו ונתן לרעהו. Pasuk says, the practice in Eretz Israel regarding selling and stuff, that a guy can give his shoe to someone else. So we're going to break it down. Geula is referring to selling. Yani chalipin. Kinyan sudar. Vechin omer lo yigael, we see elsewhere says don't redeemed. Timura zu chalipin turma means a swap, trading. Vechin omer lo you don't have timura. Timura in general means transferring a korban sasur. If you designate a sheep A as a korban, you shouldn't say that sheep B should take over sheep A. Big boo. It's called timura. Lakayem kol davar shel fi ishna lo b'tan over the pasuk mean who's giving the shoe to who? Boaz natan goel. Boaz gave his shoe to the redeemer. The guy was supposed to marry Ruth, the closer relative, who's supposed to therefore acquire the stuff from Ruth's ownership, from Ruth's inheritance. He gave up that to let Boaz take over, as we know. So Boaz, according to his opinion, holds that Boaz gave this shoe to the redeemer. So therefore, that's according to Rav. That fits according to Rav, who says that the person who's buying gets it. So Vidana says, Goel Natan the Boaz. No, the opposite happened, like the opinion of Levi. Okay, Tanna says, Kohen Bikli, you can use a kli to do halipin. Even if the kli is not worth pruta. So if you use a paper tissue, it's okay. Mara Nachman, Lo Shen that only works by a kli. Allah produce can't be used. Rav says, I feel perot, even produce can be used. So my time Rav Nachman says that a kli but not the produce. Amakra na'alo, pasuk says shu. Na'al in midyachin, only utensils or vessels can be used, but nothing on fruits. My time Rav Shisha says that even fruits can be used. Amakra, the pasuk is like kol davar, anything can be used. Pasuk specifically says. Mar says, he says you can't use it. What is those words of anything? What does that teach you? To confirm any matter that is finalized via a shoe, meaning anything can be used in the transaction, but it has to be a shoe doing the transaction. Also says na'alo, so what does he do with that? How does that not exclude produce? Should I answer you? When it says a shoe, it means a whole item, therefore you can't use a partial item, like a half a fruit. That's not good for Halipin. Nowadays, we write a certain wording. With the utensil is kasher for Halipin. So, bimane, when it says utensil, lafukim medrav shishat amar konim pirot. That's excluding Rav Shishat. We write that because that's excluding Rav Shishat that you use fruits. The kasher, when it says that it's kosher, lafukim de Shmuel the amar konin, it's excluding Shmuel, who said that you can acquire bimrika with a vessel made out of cow dung. I mean, even cheap, disgusting stuff. We're excluding it. No, it has to be something that's presentable. The mikneh to acquire means lafukim to exclude Levi, the amar kidesh makneh, who says that it's going according to the person who's selling the item. So from that, it's something that you're buying, not selling. Be, with the word be with it means Rav says the ma'uti you can't use a coin. They say the ma'uti that you can't use something as asur hana. You can't use you say yain nesach. That you can't use as halipin. Igdam in different version, be, when it says be, Mar Papa, Lamauте, Exclusive coin, Takasher, Lamara Buzino Ravashi, Ute Isurana, Exclusive. Only difference is, about Moriko Isrich, over here they don't use a pasu to exclude a disgusting flea, like a utensil made from cow fertilizer. Asimon, the Mishnah said you take the Asimon coin. You could it buys a regular minted coin. My Asimon, Asimon, Amarav, Mautin, Etanogam, Simon, the Better Merchatz. Used coins, just coinage that's used as the tokens in the bathhouse. So if you are planning to go to the bathhouse on Shabbat, you put a coin there, these worthless coins, it's like tokens, like let's say kids in action. So that's just like a symbol as to how many people are going to come in to the bathhouse so you compare. Matt, you have a question. You can't trade Ma'aser Shaniyan to Nasimon coin. Below, and also you can't put it on not onto coins, use tokens for the bathhouse. So we see it's two separate items. Sounds like Asimon's not the tokens. If you want to teach me that really it's the same exact thing, it's explaining what it means. Like what's an Asimon? It's the tokens. That doesn't fit either. Another person that says, Midasa holds that you can do Maaser Sheni Atan Simon. Chachamim say you can't do it. But they both agree you can't use it on tokens. So we say it's separate items. So what explain it? What's an Simon? Like we said earlier, it's an unminted coin. It's a slug, as they call it. He explains, he goes with his own opinion. They all say the same thing. That what Rabbi Tzahadar we said that earlier. Rabbi Ishmael Mahi, what does Rabbi Ishmael say that Rabbi Yochanan agrees to? The Tanya, but it says, you shall tie the money in your hand. Anything can be used as Maaser Sheni that's tied in your hand. Rabbi Ishmael, Rabbi says that about anything that has an image on it is also able to be used. Okay. We said in the Mishnah that regarding retracting and reneging on a deal, we said Amar Yochanan that it depends on who has it. When the guy takes the money, the seller takes the money from the buyer, that's already a good acquisition. We said earlier like this as well. The reason why we don't allow it nowadays is because we don't want the seller to tell the buyer, sorry, your wheat was burnt. So therefore, when we did a banana, we don't allow it to go through. So however, we see, if something got burnt, let the guy who burnt it pay. Why would the buyer lose out if that happens? The Gemara says, doesn't mean that it'll be burnt on purpose. It'll be, let's say, an accidental fire. If you say that the guy now already paid for it is in the seller's possession, the buyer didn't acquire it even though he paid, he'll try to save it because he'll have to otherwise give him a different one. But if you say that the buyer already acquired it, he won't extend himself, he won't try to push himself to save it. He's like, oh, it's that guy's problem, he already paid me. Rish Lakish says, no, the kinyan meshicha, taking something physically to acquire it, not via money, is midoraita. My time Rish Lakish, the Amakra Pasuk says, if you sell something to your friend or buy from the hand of your friend. That's referring to items that are bought or purchased from hand to hand. Rabbi Yochanan says, when it says from hand to hand, it excludes the land. The There's no such thing as price gouging by land. You don't get a refund for raising the prices of land, and that's what it teaches you. Nothing to do with the fact that Meshicha works for other items. He says, Imkain lichtov kra, the pasuk should have written v'cheitim kirumim mikar miyad amitecha al tonu. Okono lamid. How come that extra word okono? Shmamirna Meshicha teaches you also regarding Meshicha and what the other rabbi said regarding ona'ah, that there's no price gouging by land. Rabbi Yochanan, how come? What does he do? Okana ma'avidle. What would he do with the word okana? Maybe like the time of different bright that teaches you. V'cheitim kirumim mikar al tono. Only from that part of the pasuk, I only know that you only the Isur is where you can't overcharge. How do you know that if the seller is underpaid, that it's not a good deal? Don't wrong him. Where does he learn that from? He learns that both buyer or seller being wronged from the same word. It's on in Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon each one says, whoever has the money, he has the upper hand. Meaning the seller is the one who can back out. But the buyer can't back out. It makes sense according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, who holds that money is acquisition enough. That's why the seller can back out. The buyer can't back out. But if the money is not acquiring anything, everybody should be able to back out. So what's the case of Rabbi Shimon? Or it says, regarding Mashiach, regarding picking something up as a kinyan, is not according to Rabbi Shimon. He disagrees with it, obviously. I was saying that it works is according to Chachamim, who argues against Rabbi Shimon and the Mishnah. Okay, who says that the kinyan Mashiach, the right that you have to pick something up to acquire it. That's the difference between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi that we just explained. Who holds that money is a good kinyan. My Ika ben Rabbi Shimon Lebanon will be the difference between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan. They both say the same thing, that the guy who has the money can back out. Ika ben Rabbi Chizda, the difference is Rabbi Chizda, Amar Rabbi Chizda, but there. The same way Hachamim said you need to do a kinyan Meshicha by sales, Kak Teknu Meshicha b'chol to by buyers. Buyer can back out till he gets the merchandise. Rabbi Shimon let the Rav Chizda, Rabbanan eat to Rav Chizda. The difference between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbanan is Rabbi Shimon does not agree with Rav Chizda. Rabbanan do hold Rav Chizda. Hachamim hold that the seller needs to, let's say, to be basically, Hachamim would hold that Meshicha gives the buyer and seller the right to retract unless Meshicha was done. Mishnah says, we said earlier, the Mishnah says that whoever the Hashem who took revenge on the also will take revenge on those who back out on the word. That makes sense according to the opinion holds that money acquires. That's why they'll get punished. If it doesn't acquire, then why would it be with the problem of retracting? Why would they get punished? Gemara says, because of the verbal agreement. But is that just because you're violating your verbal agreement, is that a reason to get punished? But the time is right that says, Rabbi Shimon says, dinar zahav, even though Chachamim said that the buyer who takes the clothing for the for the purchase, that gives it to the seller, yani the seller acquires his money now. The end dinars have konetali, but taking the money does not acquire the clothing for the buyer. Halacha is as follows. That's the halacha, meaning that we still do that. But still, Chachamim said whoever did Hashem who took revenge on the Rishayim, and also from Mitzrayim and still Amara, Mitzrayim, Pesach coming out. Who also take revenge on those who do not follow their own word. The dream also by themselves with words alone. No does not acquire anything. And whoever Hachamim are also not pleased with someone who backs out of his verbal agreement. Also, we have no more punishment more than Hachamim are not going to be happy with him. He's not going to get punished by Hashem. So we see from here that if you violate your verbal agreement, Hashem won't be displeased. Hashem won't punish him. Would just Hachamim won't be happy with you against what we just said. When you have payment and a verbal agreement, that's when Hashem will be upset. But someone who just the verbal agreement without cash being handed over, then there is no punishment from Hashem. Marabah. Kira umatnita Mesiah Daf Shakish with a pasuk and a Brayta that supports the location. Kira the pasuk that says Vekihesh ba'amito b'pikadon or b'tzumat yad or begazel or ashak amito. If the guy falsely denies that he owed his friend either the deposit that he had or the loan that was by him, or that he got stolen, or he held wages back from him. So regarding loan, is referring to a case where he designated an item for the lender as collateral for the loan, and now he's denying it. Ashak, the case of Ashak is where he held back wages. Is where the employer designated an item as collateral for the wages. Now the pasuk went back and repeated the list again in regarding to giving back the lost item to the owner. The pasuk wrote, we realized that he sinned and he admits his guilt. You shall return the thing that he stole, or the wages that he didn't give, or the deposit that was left there. But the pasuk did not repeat the word loan again. Mentioned the first time, but not in the case at the end where the guy admits what he did wrong. My time, why was it not repeated? Because it must be, in that case, it didn't have meshicha. So we see the reason why there was no isur by holding back the collateral over there was because there was no meshicha done. Since no meshicha done, it must be meshicha d'oraita, and that's why we're not holding him accountable. No, when it said loan the second time, it's also including the second case of loan as well. The other case of loan, meaning, when it repeated the word wages, it's also repeating it's also another way of saying loan, right? Because when we said loan and wages are the same thing, it's money that you owe. So when it said loan, it's also including wages. It's the case where the employees took the collateral from him and then gave it back to him for him to hold it again. So says that's a case of deposit. Now, today, there's two different types of deposit, meaning a collateral for wages and a regular thing that you're watching for me. So that's the case. The pasuk should repeat the case of a loan. Make the case where the guy took the collateral and gave it back to him. If the pasuk had repeated it like you just said, there will be no support or question for what a kinyan is. Now that the pasuk did not repeat it, that gave us the hidush of Shakish. That was the hidush and the halakha of Shakish. Since it didn't repeat it, loan, but it only repeated wages, it teaches you that the case of wages is referring to when it was given, it was taken and then given back to be recollateraled again. And the case of a loan was only designated but never taken. And we see it doesn't have to be returned because Meshicha was never done. Proof for Reish Lakish. But what do you mean? You're saying the loan wasn't repeated again? Barta says, how do we know that when you have a list above and then the list again, the pasuk repeats the list, that you apply everything again? The pasuk says, anything about the guy swore falsely, which means including everything in the first list. So we see loan is repeated. This includes a loan that has to be returned. So we see the word anything reiterates and repeats the word loan, even though it didn't say it. So we see that it was repeated. Therefore, we're knocking out the proof from Reish Lakish. The Gemara says not a good proof. However, the pasuk didn't say it specifically, didn't explicitly say it, and that's why we are able to make the chidush of Reish Lakish, teach you that Meshicha d'oraita.